The Strain Season 2, Episode 3, Fort Defiance. This is definitely an interesting episode with a lot of different things going on. We got a real serious moment between F and his son, as well as F and, in a way, the Master, when he was kind of saying, like, oh, freaking train. Saying that, he'd actually kill his son and himself before ever being turned. And that was a really big moment for him. It was like, not only that moment, but him finally getting through to his son, and he had to do it in a really forceful way, which his son kind of pushed him to do, because he obviously showed in a lot of different ways that he didn't understand exactly what was happening with his mother. And he showed that, very clearly in this episode when he left and he flat out got on the bus. And every time I see anything normal happen at night, I'm like, I'm surprised anything is still working. I mean, you think it would just be like mass chaos and post-apocalyptic by now with, they flat out have to stay, like, there's an entire island, Staten Island is now virus free. When you get to a point where they talk about it on the news, you think they aren't running buses at night or any of that crap, but they apparently are. But when he tries to get on the bus and they catch up to him, it's like he was just going to see his mother. It's like, she probably misses me. And that really showed that he didn't understand, and he had this, little freak out where he's like knocking stuff down. That really was like just the little brat kid moment, honestly, to me at least, because I didn't understand. Like, I know that he was still angry and stuff, but it seemed like he got overly angry in a moment that he didn't need to. It was just like his dad was telling him like a sad story, and it affected F because he even said, like, I don't know where I was going with that. It was just kind of hurt him. He was talking about his father. And he just like freaked out and just started breaking everything. And I was very confused. Like, why did he just suddenly go all nuts like that? Like, I know they're, trying to have a moment where they're talking and he still doesn't really get it. But he just went like full tantrum mode and just started breaking things. And so it was just like, F had to show him, like, this is, if this wasn't there, you'd be dead. And this is what your mother is right now. And he just had to be stopped, but that's kind of what he had to do. It was kind of a harsh way to show him, but when I saw the scene, it was like, I can't really argue with the way he did it, because it seemed to be the only thing. Like, this is, he probably could have done that ahead of time without having to do it the forceful way if he'd just done that to begin with, which I thought was the plan. And I know it kind of was, he was sort of explaining things, but I thought he was just going to be like, we're doing this to this monster, and this is, this is what's really out there. This is why you can't go. And, him finally telling his son, like, this is what your mother is, it made perfect sense. And it's going to change at least a little bit. It's going to stop those sort of angry moments where they have their arguments because he doesn't get it. It's there now. It's just like, this is what your mother is. That thing that saw you and tried to shoot a pincer through your face, that's what your mother is right now. So he understands it now. I think we're still going to get a couple episodes before we see Kelly actually interact with them. They didn't have her in this episode, even like a little scene. Is they kind of just had the scene like, find my son, and that's all we've had for now. So we still have to wait. They're out there. No clue how far their base is compared to the home, because they don't ever really show a distance from, like, this is where this is, and this is where this is. They do, I guess, technically, if you know where the cities and stuff inside of New York, then, or the boroughs and things like that, I guess you would know that, because it's going to be like, well, they said this in the last season, this is where their house is, and then in this season they show where they are in their block or whatever. But I have no clue, so I don't know where they are relative to each other. So those the feelers are still out there looking for their son. Kelly's still out there possibly gathering more and testing them whether they're, worthy or not, snapping, kid necks and stuff like that. But that was a really cool moment. I definitely enjoyed that. Nora and Satrakian had a really awesome moment, especially, I guess it was mostly because of Satrakian, where he's, working on the worms and stuff. He goes out at night, which is a pretty cool moment. He's just walking and one comes up and he just turns, it's like super swift, and he's just like boom boom, and then he just chops its head off. And I had no idea what the heck he was doing. And I'm like, okay, so he's doing his own experiments, which I thought was kind of weird. Like, why would... I understood why he wouldn't want to be bothered, because that's kind of just his personality. But then when he did that and he was, putting the drops into his eye, that was really surprising. And of course it leads to the fact that he's actually 94 years old, which is pretty crazy. And there was something I wondered, like, how old is he? Because the youngest person, I actually had to look this up to see, But the youngest person alive today that did go through the Holocaust is actually 75. So it made sense to me. Like, he looked like he could have been a certain age, but still walking around. Like, I didn't think he was in his 70s. I actually thought he could be in his 80s, but, just able to walk around. Because that does happen. Like, I just recently met someone, and they're in their 80s, and it's like, full state of mind, just walking around. It does happen. So I was like, especially with the life he lived, it was kind of like, especially if you train your body to do that, you can easily do it. But then it's like, no, he's actually almost 100 years old, and he's putting I guess, a liquefied version of the worms in his eyes, and it's keeping him alive, and it makes him a bit more youthful. He was like really spunky and stuff at the end of the episode, where he's like, I never get tired of your, I think he said like flirtatious something. I can't really remember. I think he may have said banter, but he was kind of upbeat and stuff because he was feeling a bit younger. So it shows that he mentions that he's done it for a long time, but obviously it only happens every once in a while when there's a big event happening. So, who knows how much this has affected him as far as him being 94. How far back, has it taken him? Is he like, I guess technically he's like in his 80s, when you think about it as far as the regeneration goes. He's in the state of him being in his 80s, so he's still older, but, obviously not 94 years old. So I thought that was a cool concept. And it also introduced a lot. I mean, if he could do that, and he's been doing it, he scoops them up, he boils them in the water, he puts, I'm trying to remember exactly how he did it, because I had no clue what he was doing, so I wasn't thinking about it, like exactly what he's doing. But if I remember right, he basically boiled them in water until they were nothing, and then he put like a drop of his own blood in there, and then kind of mixed it around, and then he, put the little drops in his eyes, and his eyes still bled and stuff, and he passed out, but he was totally fine. Like, I guess every other time he didn't need to be saved, but Nora comes in, saves him. She learns his secret, so she swore not to tell anyone, and I don't know if it's gonna be found out, because I feel like he doesn't have to do it so often that it's gonna happen twice in this season. But I don't know. I feel like that's something that can't be hidden forever. So I don't know if it'll be good or bad, because if everyone knows that they can do that, despite the whole, eye bleeding, passing out thing and needing to be saved, they could live for a long time and even feel younger and possibly feel like they can, do even more in an already younger state. So I'm not sure if that'll be good or bad, or if that'll somehow spread to other people, although it would take a lot to kind of go through that and do that long process. It seemed like it took him hours to do that, which kind of makes sense. He was like, he boiled them, then he put them in one thing, then he mixed some stuff up, then he put them in another thing, and then he added his blood and mixed that and stuff. So there's definitely a process, so you don't turn into a vampire, obviously. But really cool, surprising moment where it's like, I'm 94 years old. I've been doing this to keep myself somewhat younger, so that I could keep this fight going and actually try to take these things down and destroy the master. So great reveal that, right now it's a hidden secret between these two characters, but with it being television, a secret that big always gets out to the other characters somehow. So I'm kind of just waiting for that now, because I'm excited to see some of their reactions. Because obviously, F will have his. I think it'll be typical. F will be kind of angry about it. Then you have like Vet and Dutch, and it's going to be like, well, it works. So, polar opposite opinions, but yeah, I feel like that's just how it's going to be. But either way, I'm excited to see that come up in a future episode. I guess speaking of Vet and Dutch, they have their moment where, one, the mission is now to destroy the subway, or at least the entrances. The tunnel will, of course, be fine. And, you kind of just throw that out there, so it's there. We're going to get that in a future episode. But the main focus for them is finding out what happened to the girl that left them last season when they were at the gas station. She survived that episode, stole all the money and stuff from the apartment, and now she's missing, and her mother puts up flyers, and it's like, well, I didn't put these up, so who the heck did? And we have a pretty emotional scene. I thought it was pretty well done. It was kind of interesting to see exactly how all that stuff played out. I thought it was a pretty cool scene, and then it led to something pretty surprising. I didn't think it was going to end that way, and I was like, oh, well, that's very sexual, and that's why this show is TVMS ALV or whatever. It's all the letters. That's why it's that way. But I did enjoy that scene. It was a nice little insight into her character, and just it wasn't too much. It was really just, oh, they were together and then it was bad. You cut her off. I helped her out, and that was that was kind of the basis of it. And one thing of note was that her mother kind of mentioned like like the girl kind of sapped. I'm pretty sure it's Vet is the girl. I honestly still can't remember. Um, but it was basically like her girlfriend sapped her of all of her goodness, and then she stayed around, and that's why it was almost like a crazy cycle. Like her girlfriend kind of made her bad, and then she ended up worse and kind of made her girlfriend worse. So they were just like lower and lower, I guess, as far as her mother saw it. So I thought that was interesting. She kind of saw talent in her, and then it was like, once that was all sapped by my daughter, you still stuck around, and then that just made things worse for the both of you. So I definitely thought that was pretty interesting how she, at least that's what I got from it, the way she said it. So I thought that was probably my favorite line out of all of that, because it gave some real insight. Like, I did actually like you, and I felt you had potential, and then my daughter kind of ruined that. But then you stuck around after you were ruined, and then it just got worse for both of you, and my daughter got even worse, and stuff like that. So I definitely enjoyed that portion. It was pretty cool. Um, just a lot of craziness with them going in to kill Palmer. That none of that stuff I was expecting. Like, he was training at the beginning, and that was really awesome. I was like, okay, he's training. He takes out the one vampire, and then it's like, do hand to hand like I taught you. I'm like, how the heck do you do hand to hand? But he takes out the stinger, just rips it all the way out. So that was a cool scene. He's training, and then they go in, they go to get Palmer, and basically all of them get trapped in by the UV light. So I'm assuming they're gonna all be killed, which really sucks because we still haven't really gotten a lot of that little team. And it's like 5 members. Obviously, we really only got to see like the one guy who spoke. Everyone else is just like in the background, really, like, vampires with cloaks on. So we have like the one guy who actually talks, and he gets killed off seemingly. I mean, I don't know if they're gonna end up keeping them to torture them and figure out like what's happening. How does this little group even exist? I don't know if Palmer's gonna think fast enough to do that and figure out how are their vampires coming after me, and stuff like that. So hopefully that does happen, because it at least gives them the chance to survive and possibly escape in the future, which would be great. But they're kind of just screwed right now, and Gus is just like, he had to go. I mean, he was trying to help and was like, we need you, because he can go out in the light. Obviously UV light's coming on, it's just like, oh, it's blue. So it was like, we need you, so you got to get the heck out of here. So he takes off, which I guess it wasn't the only way out, but I felt like the elevator was the worst idea ever. Like, if they got UV lights going on and stuff, I'm not getting back in the elevator. I'm getting the heck out of here. He wouldn't know that, but I'd be like, I don't know if I'm going to just hop right in the elevator. I'd feel like they could just stop it at any point. But he hops off in the elevator. He's gone. Who knows if they're living or dying or what, but that was just an insane scene. Like, they couldn't get to Palmer. They couldn't take him down. Not a clue where the Rockstar guy was, because he was like in the other room, but I guess he kind of cleared out too, like, oh, something's gonna happen. But he wasn't there. He wasn't in the little office at when they got taken down there either. So he's somewhere in the building, I guess, and he might end up going up against Gus. And if Gus killed him, I think that would be really cool, because it wouldn't just be like, oh, they're just doing like some little training. It would be like real life or death, and he'd have to. Well, I guess it was, even when he was training, it was technically life or death. But he'd be going up against someone who's really working for the master and has like even more control than the other one. So he'd be able to think a little bit better than kind of the mindless vampires that are just trying to shoot their stingers out. So if that does happen, I think it'll be pretty cool. Hopefully Gus would win that fight, and then that would kind of send a little bit of a message to the master. It's like, I don't know where he learned how to do that, but he just took someone out. I have to take him out, and there's a lot going on behind that. So hopefully that does happen. I'd love to see, like I said, the rest of the group survive. Even if they're tortured and interrogated, they're at least going to survive, and then some random TV thing happens and they all escape, because we still don't really know anything about them. So hopefully they don't get killed off or just burned alive in that giant UV pit that he had, which was crazy to me. Because it was like, okay, he has lights, UV lights, and then even the top lights. I was like, that makes perfect sense. And then just a giant pit opens up, and it looked like actual fire since it was a blue UV light. It looked like fire was coming up. Like they were just on a grill, and then of course they're burning, so it just looks like fire is shooting up and burning them all. And that just surprised me. That was just a crazy little scene, and it shows because he never would have expected them, or at least not that. He never would have expected a group to come after him, and maybe he did think that it was the master himself because he mentioned like, "Oh, I never wanted to come to this," but either he thinks that it's the master or he meant like, "I never wanted anyone else to know that I was already involved in this." But if he had that set up, then he, that's kind of his contingency plan. Like, I'm probably gonna need to burn them alive at some point. Like, they're gonna come to me and ask me for this, and I'm gonna say, all right, and then I'm gonna hit a button and roast them all alive in my room because they're gonna ask me to do something I don't want to do or I'm not even able to do. But there's gonna be some changes in these next couple episodes after that big moment. I think that was probably the biggest moment this episode, aside from the crazy reveal that we got from Satrakian. So I definitely enjoyed this one. We got some great reveals. They set up, like the plan to blow up the tunnel. I didn't mention the woman. I forgot exactly what her role is. I believe she was like a senator, possibly. But her saying like Staten Island is virus free was definitely a cool moment. Very polarizing moment when they pulled down the gate and it's just like dead vampire bodies chopped up. I was like, oh crap. I thought at first that was a mistake. And then, people are booing and stuff, or at least they threw boos in there. You don't actually see anyone doing it. But she's like, this is our message. And then people start clapping and stuff. And it was polarizing. They still had like some of the boos in there. But I was like, man, that's a really polarizing thing. And it was actually a really cool moment. But Staten Island is clean, and she's kind of moving on to the other areas and trying to help out, as the mayor said, like the big island. And he, of course, wants his name behind it. Like, I'm a part of this too. So I'm excited for that because I think she might end up involved with some of the other main characters just through random craziness, of course. So I'm really excited for that. We also got to see Palmer's former assistant actually go to Staten Island, which was pretty cool, and he went to meet his brother. And they threw in like a little racist moment where the one guy's like, "Is it your brother, or like your real brother?" And I was like, "Well, that's just like racist for no good reason." But he was in the episode and he went and he saw his brother. Really little scene. Like I thought they'd actually have more on him, but I think that was just to kind of show this is where he is and this is what he's doing. And he's currently on the virus free island, and maybe it's because he's infected in a way that we don't know yet or something. Like I don't know. Like maybe something happened that they didn't show off and it's slow moving for whatever reason. I don't know. I'm just throwing out random stuff, but obviously he's still gonna have an important role in the show. We get introduced to his brother and stuff. I was surprised to see him. In all honesty, I completely forgot he was even alive. I thought that he died in the last season. I don't know why. I thought when he quit that he got killed at some point, and I could have sworn that there's, I guess, something, he almost died. I thought he did die though. I thought he was like shot or something crazy. I don't know why I thought that, but that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, I guess I was wrong. He's alive, but he's still in the show. So they took the time to show him in this one. So he's gonna have some roles. He might be giving out some information about Palmer, possibly, because he knows what's going down. So that would be pretty cool if he got involved with the woman as well. Like, well, I know this guy, and Palmer, who is doing a lot for the city, he's actually involved with these people and is really the one who got things going because he was the one who paid Gus in like the very first episode to actually set things up, or it was like a joint venture between the two of them. So there's a lot that could possibly happen, but I enjoyed this episode. Of course, I want to know what you guys thought about it, though, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And I guess I didn't really talk about this too much, but they did find out, F and Nora did find out that they had at least some version of the cure. It's starting to work, so they're going to test transmission, which I guess I wasn't listening well enough. I don't know what the heck that even is. But my big question for you guys is definitely, what do you think about the reveal for Satrakian actually being 94? And just the fact that we saw him use the worms, or at least a melted down, diluted version of the worms to actually keep himself young, and that's what he's been doing to keep, the fight going before he actually had other people working on his side. Because that was just a huge shock for me. So I want to know what you guys think about it. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.